Morgan. The story behind the story here is that the first story is standing behind the camera, so that's another story in itself. You know I love you, right? Thank you for doing this.
Sure, no problem at all.
We're going to do a whole series on you because you are like lots of stories, because you are a storyteller. But because it's Halloween, I want you to start with telling us the story behind why you have the tour business that you do.
Okay.
Haunted Vicksburg.
Well, before we even go start that way, I'm going to make one qualifier.
Right.
Now, probably see I've got my licensed battlefield guide shirt on today.
Right.
So let me tell you right now, I am also a licensed battlefield guide.
Right.
Haunted Vicksburg has nothing to do with the licensed battlefield.
Right.
So
Right.
it's a completely separate entity. It's my own private company. But I love Vicksburg. I've grown up in Vicksburg. I've had history here. My ancestors were here during the Civil War. It's an interesting old town with a deep levels of history. Well, I'm also born on Halloween, so I'm coming up on my birthday here very shortly. And so I guess maybe I've always had sort of a predisposition to the spooky. I did work in a very scary line of work for many years. I was a teacher in junior high school for a while. So I guess maybe you learn to appreciate the more frightening things in life. Just kidding. Nonetheless, I've always been interested in history. I've always been interested in little spooky stories and stuff like this. And so a few years back, my wife and I went up to Gettysburg to see the battlefield up there. And while we're up there, we encountered a ghost tour. Now, I've always been sort of fascinated with telling ghost stories anyway. And so we took this little ghost story, and it was actually not very good. I won't call any names, on the company and stuff like this. But I kept thinking to myself and kept telling my wife, I could do a lot better than this. Vicksburg's got much better stories than this. So I guess she finally just got tired of listening to me and said, put your money where your mouth is.
I can hear her saying that to you. I can see her saying that to you.
So in 2010, I had the opportunity to just throw a little ghost tour together for actually a historic tourist coming through the city who had planned to take a ghost tour in a nearby city, but that tour had been canceled on them. And so I basically told them that I'll give you a ghost story along with the historical tour. So that evening before we did the historical tour, I actually met them up and we did a real rough 45-minute or so ghost tour, and they loved it. And I said, okay, we on to something here. And so in 2010, we began Haunted Vicksburg. And we have two tours we do. We have our Ghost Walk, which is our first and probably still the most popular. There's nothing quite like being right out there on the street in the open air. But not everybody walks very well, and there's also so much history around Vicksburg that you just can't easily walk to, that we added haunted venues, which is more of a driving, but also walking. And I tell people, nobody wants to just sit in a van the whole time. So we use the van to shuttle between 4 different neighborhoods. Now understand, Haunted Vicksburg's Ghost Walk and the Haunted Venues Tour are completely separate tours. They have every story is different. So
I've been on both of them. They're both great.
You're not going to hear any story twice. You will sometimes hear a continuation of one story.
Yes, you do.
That you began on the earlier tour. So there is tie-ins, but there's completely separate storylines for both of them. And the funny thing is, I've been doing this for 8 years, telling ghost stories now, and I still learn new ghost stories about this town all the time.
My favorite thing about that is, and this kind of proves that every life has a story, is you'll be because I've seen this, you'll be in the middle of telling the stories, and people who live here will walk up and they have a ghost story, and so they want to tell their story to you, so you'll have it for in the future, and they end up sharing it with the whole group. So you get new stories in the middle of telling your own ghost story.
This happens so often that I've actually incorporated into our Haunted Venues tour. And the story I tell there is one of the early incidents of that. And I said basically that it's interesting how this line of business takes on an afterlife or something.
Right.
Because you see, I don't have to go looking for ghost stories. They come to me.
They do.
People just walk up onto me street. The conversation station just starts something like this. It says, "Oh, you're the fellow that does ghost tours, aren't you?" Oh, yes, I am. You know, I don't really believe in ghosts, but and then usually followed by a ghost story. And I've picked up so many good stories over the years just like that.
It happened when we were on on a tour with you. A local business owner came downstairs because I like have an apartment over the business, came downstairs, and he said almost exactly those words. We don't really believe in ghosts. Well, I don't. I think his wife does. I don't. But. And off he went on the story. And I'm standing there because I'd heard you tell this exact story. And I'm standing there going, well, I'll be that gum, because it was happening right there before our eyes. So that was really interesting. And then you also have people that get so into it that you run into them later on your tours because they're back following up on the stories, like with their cameras, waiting to see if stuff happens. We had that happen too.
I've got people who will come back and take multiple tours with me. They'll come back and they'll take maybe the ghost walk one year, and then usually the next year maybe they'll be back for haunted venues, and then a couple of years they'll have family in town and they'll bring the family back, and then they'll start taking the historic tours, or vice versa. Sometimes they start with historic tours and work their way into the ghost tours. So it's and then a lot of that's just Vicksburg. I mean, Vicksburg has so much interesting history about this town, and we have folks through here all the time from far-flung parts of the earth, all of the country, all of the world, and everybody just loves Vicksburg. I had a lady on a walking tour yesterday, a historic walking tour, and she said she actually lives in Charleston. She's a very beautiful historic city. She says, I think this is the most beautiful city I've ever visited. So,
it is pretty town.
It's a pretty town. It's got interesting history, and a lot of that is dark history.
It is.
Civil War, epidemic disease, fueling, the Trail of Tears. So many things have been connected to this town here, and that's left a lot of us summer spirits over the years.
Right. Well, I think that it's kind of a spooky time of year for launching Every Life is a Story, but I think ironically you've also proven that even the afterlife is a story. So I appreciate my partner in time being willing to do this for me, and we're going to cover other things about you because you're a very interesting man. Your life is a story in and of itself, but I definitely wanted to hit the haunted Vicksburg tour story for today and tomorrow because the weather is great. It is a great time to get out and do these tours because it's not cold, it's not rainy. So what is your tour schedule?
All right, so we will do, of course we're getting down to the end of October. Tomorrow's after Halloween, but that's not the end because our tours run year round.
Right.
We'll continue the Ghost Walk as Friday and Saturday nights through the end of November. Then we'll close the Ghost Walk for the winter and pick it up again in the fall. Now our Haunted Venues tour, which is more van-based, we'll continue that through the year. So there'll be a ghost tour available just about any time you want to come take one here in Vicksburg. And of course, the best way to get information is go right